Okay, looks like we got everybody coming in from the waiting room here for the introduction to felting, specifically needle felting. Darren's going to be our instructor today. He's the one there on screen. I'll be hanging out in the chat room answering your questions or forwarding them on to Darren. If you haven't gotten the handout, I'll be able to pop that in the chat to download as well. And if you have any questions over the course of class, please put those in the chat room as well, and I'll forward them along. And I see Darren's introducing us to his friends, so I'll let him take it away.
Okay. So needle felting is what we're doing today, and we're going to learn how to make some three-dimensional needle felted sculptures. And once you learn the basic concept and ideas of how to make these little gnomes that I'm going to show, then you can apply these to making pretty much any other kind of idea that you want to make. You could, turn them into anything that you can imagine. And there's lots of videos online. There's lots of, if you go on Pinterest, people can do very, very realistic sculptures out of this. Sometimes you'll look at sculptures of like a cat or a rabbit or something, and it actually looks real. So depending on how much you practice, you can really get very, very realistic results from needle felting. So if we want to go ahead and switch to the view of my hands, we'll go ahead and get started. And I'll show you some of the tools that we're using. Set up. Okay. So what I'm going to be using today, I'm using these needles, and you can kind of see the shiny bits on the needle are actually kind of they're barbs, or they're like little indentations cut into the needle. So they're not just regular needles. It's almost like a little saw blade in a way. And so that's what makes the needle felting work. And basically all you're doing is you're getting all the fibers are tangling together. And as they tangle together, they create felt. I'm using this three needle pen for detail work. And I have this five needle needle felting tool for work that's not as detailed. And then sometimes I'll be using just the one needle. One thing I do want to caution you about this, this really is not an activity for children. So I would recommend not having your children do this. These needles are very sharp, and I have stabbed my fingers with them many times. I stabbed it like through this fatty part of my thumb once, and it really hurts. And so like with little fingers, if they stabbed a needle into their fingers, it could really possibly do some damage, and they will not have a good time with that. So I will recommend that this is for maybe older teenagers or adults, not for young children, because it really can hurt. So you need some type of a brush. This is a needle felting mat. You can use upholstery foam or something, because you need something that the needles are going to be able to go into. You can't, if they hit the table, then they'll break. So you do want to have some extra needles, because these needles do break. One thing about using the needles, when you can go into your felt in any direction, but if you go in on an angle, you have to come back out on the same angle. If you go in and then you kind of adjust and come back out, it will bend the needle and cause the needle to break. So they're not super expensive, but it is, you don't want to break all of them if you can avoid it. So kind of go in on one angle, back out at the exact same angle, and that'll help avoid breaking them. Okay. So you can use roving. Usually when people are felting, then you feel like you need to use 100% wool, and you can use roving. But with needle felting, you don't have to use wool. You can use acrylic and different types of blends. And today I'm going to be using Hometown Bonus Bundle, and it's 100% acrylic. And that's what I've been using to make my samples out of. So I don't have a full ball of it to show you, but this is what the yarn looks like. I rolled this up into a ball because I used most of it, and it started to get in a tangle. And so what I've done is I've cut the yarn in some small little pieces, and I'm just going to use these pet brushes. You might have pet brushes. I always try to think of a way for people to do something that using stuff that you might already have. So you don't have to buy a lot of stuff at first, but you can use these brushes and you brush the yarn. You keep brushing it until you make it into the fuzzy, it looks like roving. I don't know if you've ever seen roving before, that you use if you're going to spin. And sometimes you can get a single ply roving that you knit or crochet with, but you just keep brushing it until you brush it out into this. And this is a really good way to use up scrap yarn. So if you have scrap yarn at home, you might have a little ball of yarn that you're not sure what you can do with it. You can use that to create this, this roving type fiber and use it for needle felting. Now, the only fiber that I recommend, that I don't recommend using for needle felting, plant fibers don't work as well because they're stiff. If you have some plant fibers that are really soft, you can certainly try them. If they work, great. If they don't, then just know that they typically don't work. If it's like a cotton ball that's super fluffy and soft, it probably would work. But if it's like a cotton that's been treated so that you can knit or crochet with it, it's usually quite stiff, and it's gonna break your needles. So you don't want to use that. Okay. So I'm using this blue, and I'm using the red, and I'm using this cream color for the flesh tone. So I'm using this for the shirt, this for the pants and the hat, and then this for the flesh tone. And then you can use, of course, any colors that you want. You can mix it up. You can make them look any way that you want. But then this is the finished little guy I made. And I like to kind of get creative with the hair and the beard. I think a gnome would probably have some kind of funny braids or big braided mustache or something. So yeah, just do anything you want with that. But the way I like to get started is I will start with balls of yarn and that are basically in the shape of what I'm going to be making. So I've watched other videos on needle felting, and sometimes what they have you do is start out with a ball of fluff like this, and then they just want you to keep working it until it gets starts to get dense, and then keep building it up and building it up and building it up that way. Well, I don't have that kind of time. I don't have that kind of patience. So what I decided I'm going to start doing was I take a ball of yarn and I wind it pretty tight so that it's quite dense. And then this is what I'm starting with. So this saves a lot of time in your needle felting. So if you want to make a bunch of these for Christmas gifts or Hanukkah, or if you want to sell them on Etsy or something, this will save you so much time. And if you use yarn that's the same color that your final project is going to be, then it makes it easier to cover it. So you don't have to have so much to cover it. If a little bit of this shows through, it's not going to be a problem because it's the same color. So what you do is, I'm going to put this blue right on blue there. And you're just working into it. You're pushing your needles into the body of the gnome, and you want to use your other hand to kind of smooth it out. So you're kind of smoothing it out nicely, and then you want to kind of turn it and kind of keep working even. And every time you press it into the body of the gnome or whatever project you're making, you are always moving fibers. The needles are always pushing fibers in. So just remember that. I like to keep a lot on it. So that way, you don't have to go over it as many times. If you put a nice thick coat of this on it, then you don't have to go over it so many times. You can get a nice, good covering like the first 2 or 3 times you go around it. And then you just want to keep making it smooth. Keep going like this, making it smooth. Smooth it out with your hand and turn it. Do we have any questions? I know I've kind of covered a lot of most of this is pretty straightforward though. I don't know if we have any questions at all yet. So it
We
does
had a
take a lot of
question
time.
on, we had a question on where you got the brushes, and I know you said you were using pet hair brushes, but what other kinds could you use?
Yeah, so these are just my cat's brushes. If you want to, if you're going to get into this and really do a lot, you want to get these professional karting brushes. And these, they're not cheap. So I think these cost like 80 bucks, but these are really big ones. These are as big as my hands. You can buy smaller ones that are about half this size. And they're like 40 or 45 or something. So they're not cheap. So if you're going to invest in the brushes, you it's probably going to be something that you're going to be doing a little bit more often. Um, that's why I encourage like these little pet brushes, because you can pick these up at a pet store for what, like $10 or less, maybe at a dollar store even. But if you're going to be doing it a lot, these karting brushes, you can blend a lot of fiber out really fast on these karting brushes, and this is the way to go if you're going to be doing big projects, or if you're going to be doing it a lot, or if you're going to be spinning and stuff as well. They come in handy for lots of things. Okay, any other questions?
And on the needles in the needle felting tool, do those come in different sizes?
They do. Commonly, they come in two sizes. One is very coarse and one is more fine, but they do come in a variety of sizes, to very, very coarse to very, very, very fine. I usually just like to use the coarse ones because they work much faster. If you're using the fine ones, then it takes a lot longer. And I don't really see the benefit in using the very fine ones, but I'm sure other people that do needle felting would probably disagree with me on that. Um, yeah, but they do come in like different coarse levels of coarseness.
I think the fine ones would be useful if you're doing like really detailed like art sculptures kind of. Um,
Maybe.
and one more question that's perfect for what you have on screen. How do you keep those balls of yarn together? Like where you
Okay,
have the
so
red and the blue attached.
well, the red and the blue one, these are it's one ball. It's not two balls. I wrapped just kind of one ball of one, and then I covered then the rest of it with blue. So that way it's one ball of yarn that is wrapped kind of half and half. That's how I did this one. Um, but I'm going to show you how to attach all the pieces together to make the gnome in just a little bit. We'll get to that part, how to group them together. Okay. But you want to just kind of card out enough of this fiber to cover each section. Switch to my next bit. And you keep going and you keep going until you get everything nice and smooth. And then this is kind of what it will look like once you start smoothing it out. All right. Any questions about how you smooth it out, or do you want me to demonstrate that anymore? So it started out like this. And then you just keep going over it and over it with your fiber and smoothing it out. And it does take a while. It's not something that happens super fast. And you just keep going and smoothing it over until it looks nice and smooth like these guys. And then you're ready to kind of start doing the detail work and assembling it. Any questions on how I got to this point? No? Okay. So I want to show you how to make the arms. So this is going to be for the arms. And then,
We do have a couple questions,
okay.
Darren. How thick a layer of the fiber do you want to put over the yarn ball base?
It depends really on how, I mean, I would just put a nice, I've never really measured it, but you just want to put a nice, you don't want it to be sheer so that you can see through it. Put a nice thick layer on it and then go all over it. And then if it doesn't look smooth enough, you can go over it again. So you might want to go over it 2 or 3 times Or you might, if you put one real thick layer on it, you might only have to go over it once. So it really, you just want enough that it's going to give you a nice coverage so that you don't see the texture of it. You want it to be nice and smooth looking. You want it to look like felt instead of like strands of yarn.
And does it matter how fast or slow you use the felting needle?
No, it doesn't. You can, if you use it too fast, you're more likely to stab your hand. I've discovered that the hard way. So doesn't really matter how fast or slow. You just want to make sure, try not to break the needles, but you want your hand to move as fast as this is moving, because otherwise, and it does really hurt. So, okay. Anything else?
And we had another question on what type of yarn you would use.
Any type of yarn. Plant fibers are not as easy to work with. You would probably want to use a yarn that is loosely plied. So something with a nice tight cable ply is harder to brush out. If you can get roving, if you want to order some roving, that is probably the easiest to use because it's already brushed out and prepared for you. But something that is easier to brush out, like this one here, you can see how it's easy to pull apart even with your fingers. So you would just want something that's loosely plied. So, and I did see one of the questions. So if the needles break, you take this apart, it just screws off. And here's a little trick that I do. I put a little bit of fiber inside of it. It helps keep it from rattling and making a lot of noise. So if you're doing this and you have other people like in the same room, it makes it a little more quiet and they'll be maybe a little less annoyed with you. And so you just take the needles out, and then there are little holes, and you just drop them into the little hole. And then I put this, and it's kind of like a shock absorber to kind of keep it from making so much noise. And then it comes with this little silver disc, and then I screw it back down on, and then it's ready to go. That's how this tool works. So they all work a little differently. I have this wooden one that you have to use a screwdriver to replace the needles. All of these needles are broken and I didn't replace them, but I did want to show you that there are different kinds. And then I have this one that only holds one needle. So, any other questions? We good?
I think we're ready to add some arms.
Okay. So making the arms, so the way I make the arms is I will take, you can use a book or something, and I just like to wrap yarn around it like this, cut it, and slide it off to kind of give you kind of a base to start with. And then go ahead and wrap the yarn around it. Just to kind of give you something to work into. So you see how I'm just wrapping it? And it's okay to pull it kind of tight. Cut it. And then you use this, I prepared this red. You can see if this were white, it would make it a lot harder to cover. So you want to make the base of your object the same color it's going to be when it's finished, because then it makes it a lot easier to get that nice coverage. And then just and there are lots and lots of different, I mean, there's no really right or wrong way to do this. So if you think a different way might be better, if you try it and you come up with another idea and you do it a different way, then that's great, because there's so many ways of achieving the same end result. You might find something that works better for you or that you like better. And then you just keep going over this until you get it nice, and you just kind of smooth it out with your fingers or your hand and smooth it out really nicely, and then work the fibers with the needles as it's kind of pressed smooth. And this is a good opportunity to like stab your hand. Like this is where I've like really stabbed my hand, and then you'll bleed on it, and then you can tell people you have your blood, sweat, and tears into your projects. It's a true thing. So you just keep working it until it gets really pressed down like this. And then I'll cut this in half, and then you end up with 2 arms. And then to make the hand, if you want to do a little hand, you can take some of the flesh, whatever color you choose for the flesh color that you want it to be for yours. You just kind of make a little ball of it. And I have this tool made by Clover, and it's like a little rake, and you can hold something in place while you're felting it. And then that way it's less risk for your fingers. This is made by Clover. And then you just keep you get a nice sturdy little piece of felt. And then this is where you might want to just use 1 needle. And then you just kind of work it into the hand, into the end of the arm. And then once you get that attached, you can put some red over it, then to make it look like it's coming out of a sleeve. And working with felt is very nice. It's a very forgiving form of art. You can, like if you don't like this, you can just cut it off and put on a different one. Or if you wanted to change the color, you could completely go over it with another color. Or if I wanted to add stripes, I could take a different color of yarn and I could just lay it across and I could add stripes to it. Like if I wanted to have a striped sweater. And then if you don't like it, sometimes you take it off if you don't attach it permanently. You can sometimes change your mind. So then that's how I attach the little hand. You can also, if you like to sew, you can just use needle and thread to kind of sew things together and then cover over any of your stitches with the fiber and felt over it to kind of hide it. And that's kind of another way you can attach things. So there's lots and lots of different ways of attaching things. Any questions about anything so far? And so I made these little feet the same way that I made the arms. I just kind of used some black yarn and wrapped it up and made like a long cylinder and then cut it in half to make the feet. And when you attach the feet, you do want to kind of go ahead and attach them and then stand it up and see if it's going to stand and kind of make sure they're kind of level, because it's kind of nice if it'll stand up on its own. So when you attach them, you can just kind of keep working them until they get to be the right level so that they're going to sit nice and evenly. And to attach the feet, you can just use some of the same yarn that you made the feet out of and just kind of felt them in place like this. Or you could sew them in place. Just get some black, like a needle and thread, get some black thread, sew them in place, and then cover over that with some of the yarn that the fiber that you made the feet out of, so that your stitches don't show.
Question about how you might add pipe cleaners so you can make it a posable figure.
There are, you can use pipe cleaners, and I have had some other that are specifically made for felting that have a bit of a stronger wire in it. And I've never really had good luck with it. I've always ended up hitting that wire and breaking my needles. So it's not something that I've been good with using, but I know other people really do like using them, and I've seen online how people use them. So it is definitely something that's available. But if you do try that, be careful, because if the needle hits the wire, it will break. And so I quickly just kind of attached this. It's not attached super permanently, but what you would do to attach it more permanent is to take more of this fiber that you used to make the shoe out of, and to just kind of keep pushing that. You want to attach it to the shoe and then to the bottom of the body, and then kind of push it in that crease in between. And you might end up making you want a nice crisp line there where the shoe and the bottom of the pant leg reach. So what you might want to do then is then take some more blue and kind of cover it up to give yourself a nice crisp line if you need to go back and clean that up a little bit. Is there any questions about how to attach the feet? But then after you attach both feet, you do want to see if you can see if it'll stand up. And if it won't, then you can go to the bottom and kind of make it a little bit more even, because it's kind of cute if they stand up on their own. And then to attach the arms, you kind of attach the arms in the same way. You want to kind of position the arm and see, like, you don't want little tiny short arms probably. So you got to position the arm where you want it to be. And then you take some of the red or whatever color you're using and just kind of go over the entire arm, the top of the arm, like this. And so you just see how I'm not really just going along the edges, I'm actually covering the entire arm. And then what you can do is just blend that out, and it'll attach the arm nice and securely, but it's really not going to show because it's the same fiber that you made the arm out of and the sweater out of, the jacket. And then you just you do kind of want to pay attention to the crease here, because you want it to look like the arm goes clear up to the shoulder. So you can kind of any questions about anything at all that we've covered so far? And then you can use a little bit of this fiber to kind of build up maybe a little shoulder. And if you
not a question, but I realized I forgot in my beginning of the class introduction that forgot to say that this is being recorded. And so if you wanted to watch it back over again, you can do so starting tomorrow at michaels.com/classes or on their YouTube channel.
So you can get as detailed as you want, or keep it as simple as you want. So for the sake of the class and for beginners, you might want to keep it pretty simple and just have, that's just a nice representation of an arm. And then by the time you get on the other side, you've got your feet attached, and then you have two arms. And see, I really didn't do legs. We're really not doing anything with legs. It's just like the gnome is standing with his legs together and his feet sticking straight forward. Again, if you want to get more fancy, you could separate the legs out and make it as detailed as you want it to be. Okay, any questions so far about that? Okay, and so this is the little face, the head of the gnome. And this is where you can have a lot of fun. You can really have a lot of fun decorating the face. So here is, I've made the gnome in several stages of finish so that we can show you how it looks along the way. So the arm off of this one to show how to reattach it. So if you don't like the way you put the arm on, you can move it around, you can take it off, put it back on, and then once you're really sure that you like the placement of it, then you can, you know, make it really permanent by going over it and over it until it seems really secure. You kind of pull on it and see if it's going to come loose. And if you keep going over it, it will become very secure and become incorporated into the body. So it's all one, really one piece at that point. So see, it stands up on its own. You really can't see the way the camera is, but it's kind of cute if they stand up on their own. And then for the head, so it's gonna, when I make these, I usually put a big beard on them and a big mustache and lots of hair. And I like to put braids, like braided mustache. So you really don't see a lot of the face, but sometimes I do like to get a little bit more detailed with them. This is one that I made. It's a much larger scale. And it has a removable hat. You can see it. You can really have a lot of fun with, you know, the shaping of the eyes. You can really get a nice dimension for the nose. If you see the mouth, you know, you can get a nice lip, do a chin. See, he has a needle stuck in it. It's like maybe it's a voodoo doll. So, you know, you can really do a lot of fun detail work if you want to, And then there's this one. Again, this is one that I spent a lot more time on. It's a lot bigger, but just so you can see like the level of detail you can really get with them. I think the eyes are fun, you know, do some shading on the eyelid and fun eyebrow. And then these are clothes I knitted for, I mean, I have a lot of time apparently. I've knitted clothes for dolls. Why not, right? So depending on how much time you have and how much energy you want to devote to this, you can really get quite realistic with them. But for just some basics, you don't have to get crazy about it to have a nice little look. So if you just get a...
We have a couple of general questions before we get to our face here. How sturdy are the finished projects? Like, could a small child pull them apart?
That's up to you. Like these that I've made, like these are sturdy as a doll. Like they're not like 100% sturdy, but like you could give these to a small child, like a 3 or 4-year-old, and they wouldn't pull them apart. But depending on, I've felt people's needle felting, and this isn't a, you know, it's a decision on how you want it to be. When I do my needle felting is always very firm. It feels solid and it feels very, very firm. I've been to like craft fairs where I've seen other people's needle felting, and it has a very fluffy and light feel to it. So depending on the level of firmness that you are making in your work will depend on how permanent and how solid and how much structure it has, and if it'll fall apart easy or if it's going to hold up really well. So yeah, that really depends on you. You can continue needle felting, you can continue working it until it's almost like not as hard as a rock, but it'll be very, very dense. So, or you can let it continue to be really kind of soft and fluffy, but it'll still have a lot of shape. So there's different levels of finish that you can decide on. So what I'm doing here is,
oops, sorry, okay. Darren, one more. We've had a couple questions about using like a styrofoam ball as a base.
You could try it. I feel like, first of all, I feel like it would be very annoying for the needles to go into the styrofoam. I think it would probably end up falling apart. And I want to say it would probably work, but then I feel like it might not. I don't know. You'd have to try it. You could use it as the center and then wrap it in yarn so that maybe the needles really aren't coming into the styrofoam. But that's just something, I've never done that, but I think it's a good idea and it's something you can certainly try. I
Yeah,
always
I
try
wasn't
it.
sure, like, if the needle would break if it hit the styrofoam or how well the yarn would adhere to that.
I don't think the yarn would adhere to the styrofoam, and I don't think the needle would break. But if you were going to start, let's just say pretend like this was a styrofoam ball, and I was going to use this for my center. I would say completely wrap the entire styrofoam ball with yarn, and then go from there. So if you were going to maybe do something really big, you could use a styrofoam ball from the center to fill in the space, wrap about like an inch or two of yarn around that, and then I think that would work out fine. But just depending on how you approach it, it may or may not work as well. But I've never really done that before, but I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I also thought if you had like a thick enough upholstery foam that you could carve it into shape, that might work.
It might work. That upholstery foam's expensive though, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, or like that like green foam that florists use.
Maybe,
Unless that dissolves in water, and I might be thinking wrong.
yeah, that might work. That might work. So what I've done, I've just taken my circle and I just put another like little round circle to kind of create the shape for the nose. And you can see it's just very simple. And I'm gonna do another little shape for the chin. So kind of hold this, kind of create a little chin. And again, if you're gonna put a beard on it, that's gonna completely cover all this, you might not even need to add a chin, but just in case if you don't want to put a beard on it. Sometimes I do like a mustache and sideburns, long sideburns, but I don't put it on the chin because that's kind of a old fashioned, kind of a funny look. You know, they call it mutton chops. It's kind of an old fashioned, like a European look or something that I think a gnome definitely would consider wearing. And then you can use this to kind of make the indentation for where the mouth is going to go. So now I've got a nose, I've got a little indentation for a mouth, and then I have a basic structure for a little chin. So you can kind of see there's the nose, the mouth, and then the chin. And you can build the chin up as much as you want, or you wouldn't have to at all. Because like for this girl gnome, you know, she doesn't have, of course, a beard. So she has a nose and a chin, which gives it a nice look. So, and that's really all you have to do. And then for the eyes, you want to just kind of make an indentation where the eyes are going to be. You would want to keep kind of going in one spot over and over and over and over again. And that would cause an indentation for where the eyes are going to be if you want it to be. Maybe you don't want to take it that far. Maybe you're just going to keep it really simple. So you can make that decision on how you want it to look. But then for the eyes, you can just take like a little piece of yarn. Just kind of keep shaping it to get the eye. And then if you got all those little fuzzy bits, you can kind of go over with a nice sharp scissor and cut those fuzzy bits off. And you can direct the shape of it with this needle. If you keep working it in one direction, you can see how it kind of directs the shape of it. And that could be one eye on one side. Any questions? And so if you wanted to make a little bit more shape where the eye is going to go, then what you do is you just take your needle. I would probably use the 3-needle one, but I've got too much stuff on my desk now, I can't find it. So I've got all kinds of different body parts of half-made gnomes all over my desk. So
We do have a couple questions while you work on that. T. Grace had a question about, are there felting patterns available?
you know, I know there are felting kits. There are felting kits which you can buy, and they'll give you all of the supplies that you'll need to make your little creation, and directions. So it's not quite like a pattern, but it, it gives you the instructions that you'll need.
Yeah.
So you can see just by working in the same spot a lot and giving a lot of pressure there, I don't know if you can tell, but it kind of, you can see it kind of gives it an indentation.
And as far as the patterns go, Susan also reminded that check the craft section of your library, because there are definitely like books on needle felting, and so they have directions for specific projects. And then Vanessa wanted to know, is there such a thing as working the yarn too much?
For this, I don't think there is. If you continue to work it over and over and over and over again, it will continue to get more and more dense in that exact spot where you're working it. And it can cause everything to kind of pull in that direction and maybe distort the shape of what you're making. So in that situation, it might, but I might be doing another class where we do flat needle felting, and you can do little pictures like this. And when you're doing flat needle felting, or you could be doing this on a sweater, if you overwork one spot, you can end up getting a hole in it or something. So you can overwork it. But for the sculptures, I've really never overworked it, and to the point where it's been a problem. But for something like this, if you overwork one spot too much, it can either get a hole in it, or sometimes it'll cause it to pucker, and it won't lay flat again. But you can usually steam it out or iron it, and it'll be, but this is all done with just acrylic yarn and needle felting needles. So, but that's kind of fun. I just wanted to show you there's so many things you can do with felting. It's just such a very versatile art form. And just do the eye on the other side. And depending on how detailed you want it, you can do an iris, you can do pupils, you can do eyeliner around it. If you want to draw like really detailed, like around like the eyeliner or something, the way I did that was I just do it on the back just so you can see what it looks like. Just use a small strand of yarn that's very sleek and not so fuzzy. And then just kind of attach it, and then take one needle so if you wanted to make like eyes that are shaped more like an eye, and then cut off the bits you don't. And also, if you wanted to write something, if you were making like a different type of a project where you wanted to write somebody's name on it, you can just use regular yarn to draw with in that way, or you could draw out hearts or stars, and you can just use regular yarn for that. You wouldn't need to always use roving. Okay, any questions about that, how I did that, or?
Using all these tiny scraps of yarn is just an excuse for me to keep all my tiny scraps of yarn.
That's a problem, I know. It's why I have tiny scraps of yarn everywhere. So, I mean, that's not very good, but you can kind of get the point that if you wanted to draw, a proper shaped eye instead of just the dot, you could. That's kind of how I got this kind of a look, where I outlined the eye and then did the, of course this space is bigger, so it's easier to get in there and like do the detail and do the shading. So, but like on her face, really small. So that's kind of how I did hers. And
Linda has a question. Oops, sorry. She said she's seen where people use beads for the eyes.
Use what?
How would they get? People use beads for the eyes. So
okay. Yeah, so you can certainly use beads, or so if you're going to be doing stuff like that, I recommend getting one of these curved needles. I find them to be helpful in a situation like this. And that's kind of how I sewed the one that I made together. Um, so you put the head on, and then you can kind of go into, and it kind of comes out here, and you kind of do it like that. And then if you end up with your stitches showing, you just cover that over with more of the felt, more of the, you could use an invisible thread, but that tends to be plastic. So it might be better to use just like a regular cotton or wool or polyester thread in just a similar color to what you're using. But if you were going to put beads on, you would just, thread the needle and just sew the bead just right where you wanted it to be. Just sew it right on. Just right there where the eye is. And then I've actually even used safety eyes for some of mine. I don't think I have any here with safety eyes. But what I did was I made a little piece of felt about the size of the face that was flat, and I put the eyes on it. And then I took the little creature's head, and I took a scissor and I cut holes where the eyes were going to go to fit the shanks of the safety eyes in there. And so I just put the whole thing over it, kind of like a mask. And then I just took my needle felting needles and felted that mask, that whole sheet of felt over the face and attached it. And then I continued then to sculpt the face. So you can use safety eyes, you can use buttons, you could draw them on, you can use beads, anything you can think of. I mean, that's one of the best things about this type of an art form is you can, and if somebody tells you you can't do it, then that's the best reason to do it, right? Because if somebody says that something can't be done, then we're going to do it to prove them wrong. So, because that's what people always said, you can't needle felt with acrylic, you have to use 100% wool. So here I am needle felting with 100% acrylic. So, I say rock the boat a little bit, right? Any other questions?
Do you have any like people you follow for needle felting ideas or inspiration?
I really don't have anyone to recommend, but I know there are so many. There are a lot. So if you just go on Pinterest or Instagram or anywhere, I'm sure you can find them. And then to attach the hair, I like to attach the hair in a couple of different sections. Like I like it to be actually kind of like hair. So I'll do it in a couple of different layers like this. Like I don't want to put just like one big glob of hair on the top or the back or something. I like to put it in some different layers. So then it seems like it lays a little bit nicer. And then after you're done, you could then you can kind of braid it and trim it, and it's a little bit easier to work with because it's more like how real hair kind of grows all over your head and not just like along the top or something. Or you can make little braids and then attach them. I did have a little braid. I don't know what happened to it, but you can braid up some yarn and then attach it as a fully realized braid already. So, and then like for the mustache, you can cut, and you can do any color you want. I'm not doing white. I mean, a lot of times gnomes have white beards, but because my flesh color is so light, I didn't want to do white. But if you do a darker flesh tone, then you could certainly do like a white beard. But if you put the mustache on in two pieces, it kind of looks a little bit more realistic. I think that gives it a little bit more. And just kind of hold it where you want it as you're attaching it. And one thing you can do also is I should have mentioned this at the beginning, with this flesh tone that's so light, you could, when you're brushing out the yarn, I could have put a little bit of red and a little bit of brown in with it and kind of blended it all together. And you can actually mix colors together, almost like mixing paint. So you can, you can take white and red and mix them together and make a pink, or, it works pretty well. And then
Emily actually had a question sort of related to that. Could you apply like blush or something else to the surface of the felted face?
I think you could. I've never really done that, but I don't see why you couldn't. Um, if you're going to use like a powdered blush, like for like this real makeup, it would probably end up brushing off eventually. Um, but you could certainly try it, or maybe use like oil pastels or chalk or something might work. Or you could maybe try some on a, practice on something that's not a finished piece, maybe some watercolors or even some paint to see if you can add certain colors um, or designs. The problem is that it's very fuzzy, so it's going to be hard to get nice crisp lines with paint or something. But like if you just want to put blush on the cheeks or a little bit of shading or something, I think you could probably do that fairly easily.
Yeah, I think I've seen even on some like crochet amigurumi patterns where you put like a
Yeah,
little bit of like pink marker for blush or inside the ears or something.
yeah, some marker or something might work.
Yeah. And Tanya wants to know, does the rake have any other purpose besides holding things in place?
Um, it's supposed to help clean this. As you can see, I recommend cleaning your mat more often than I clean mine. But that's what this is supposed to be for, to help clean the stuff out of your mat. But yeah, I would clean, I should clean this more often, but I mean, cleaning's no fun, is it? Is cleaning fun?
Do as
It's pretty
Darren says,
much.
not as he does.
What?
Do as Darren says, not as he does.
Right. So you can just do a little mouth like this. And then you can just.
We do have just about under 10 minutes left here. So I want to remind everyone again that we did record this class. So you can watch it tomorrow at michaels.com/classes or on the Michaels YouTube channel. It will be there as well. And I'm going to put the handout in the chat once more in case you didn't get that.
Then I would recommend sewing this on and then going through and attaching it with felt. But if you sew it on, it's going to be a little bit easier. It's going to be a little bit more secure to start with. But if you don't want to, then you can just kind of take, and you would do this before you started adding the details for the face. So you see how I'm working this red up into the head of it, and then work the red down into the shirt, into the body. Work it into the head of it this way. And you want to kind of continue and shape the neck a little bit, and then work it into, and then you would do that all the way around. And then after you get it attached that way, then what you can do is go back over. I don't think I have any more of the white. Oh, you go back over then. Once it's attached, then you go back over with the flesh color, whatever color you choose, and clean it up and give yourself a nice crisp line. Then that way, it's not going to look funny. But all you do then, you just take as much of this roving or fiber as is needed, and you attach it to the head. And this would take a little while. This is one of those things that's just going to take a little while, and you just have to just kind of be patient and don't stab your fingers. So attaching it to the body, attaching it to the head, and then you want to kind of maintain a little bit of a shape for a neck. And then attaching the hat would be the same. You could attach the hat in the same way. and you might want to do that before you add the hair if you're going to do it in that method. That's why I kind of like to sew it on, because you can, give a nice thick hair and do braids and stuff coming out or whatever you want, and then sew the hat to it, and it looks more like the hat is sitting on top of the head instead of kind of a part of the head. But again, you can do it however you want. See, that's this one. I attached the hat after, and it looks. I just kind of did a braid going on around the side. I don't know. I think it's fun to get kind of creative with their. I don't know, just kind of a fun little added detail. So, any questions? That's pretty much it. Unless if you have any questions, I'll be happy to go over anything else again. Any questions?
Well, while we let everybody type their questions if they've got any, just a reminder that we have another class coming up next Monday. That's December 14th for Fair Isle Knitting. So if any of you are knitters in the crowd, you can tune into that. And then we're taking a little break, but we'll be back in January. We'll have some beginning crochet classes and some other things. Those aren't available for sign up yet, but they will be soon.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of beginning classes, knitting and crochet, the beginning of the year. So if you had a New Year's resolution to learn either knit or crochet, now's the time to take advantage of some free classes.
Ooh, good question. What are the very basic tools you need to start with needle felting?
The very basic ones, if you're going to be making three-dimensional sculptures like this, you might not need this brush because you're working right into your sculpture. So really the most important thing would be to just get some of the needles. I like these tools where they hold either 3 or 5 needles. So I would get either one or both of these tools and buy like a set of replacement needles. I think they come in a pack of 5 replacement needles. And that's pretty much all you need to get started. If you want to do something flat like this, then you will definitely need a brush or something, or a piece of foam to work into, because the needle has to be able to go into something. Like you can't work on the table or else the needles will hit the table and break. So they need to be able to depress into something that they're not going to break. So, I mean, you could try a piece of styrofoam and see how that works for you. But if you're going to do very much of it, I think you'll want to invest in. If you have a piece of upholstery foam, that works really well. I have a really big piece of upholstery foam I use when I work on big projects, and it works really well. So I think basically just some old scrap yarn and just the needles to start with, if that's,
Ooh, Cheryl has another good question. Does each brand only take its own type of needles?
They seem to be, from what I've experienced, they seem to be universal. I've never seen any that they all seem to be shaped exactly the same way. So they all, like, there's a standard as far as I've seen. So it seems like there's a standard where they all fit each other's.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
And the brush or the mat there, is that, 2 questions. Is it also made by Clover, and is it specific for needle felting?
Yeah, this is also made by Clover, and it's a needle felting mat, and they sell this one and then a smaller one. And I think Michael's has one on their website as well. And you can get it from lionbrand.com as well. Yeah, I should clean this more often.
Maria says she's seen dishwashing sponges with like a piece of cork at the bottom. So that might be another alternative for the felting mat.
It might, I've always thought just like a regular scrub brush might work. Like if you have a scrub brush with a flat back.
I mean, true, that's basically what that is.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that might work as a starter.
Yeah, one that's got like a dense enough level of bristles.
Yeah. All right, anything else? But then, you can do lots of fun. This guy's pretty fun. I like him. And if you want to change something, like I could totally go back and like reshape his face. I could change the color of his eyes. I could take the hair off and add like black hair or red hair or something. You know, you can totally do anything. It's really a very versatile and forgiving, and um, that's what makes it fun, because you can always change your mind and do stuff. If it turns out bad, you can just take it off and start again.
All right. And just before we go, I'm going to put the handout in the chat one more time in case you need it. And if you want to find Darren online, I'll put his Instagram name in the chat there as well.
On Instagram and TikTok under the same name. So if you have any questions or need any help, just send me a direct message. Probably on Instagram is the best way to contact me. And then I try to answer them as soon as I can. I can usually answer pretty quick. I check it fairly often. But yeah, don't hesitate to ask me any questions or let me know if you need any help.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We hope to see you again soon.
Okay. Have a good night. Bye.